So you probably thought that Blackberry was out of the hardware game. Well, so did I. It's not quite accurate though. True, they've stopped physically making phones, as in their own manufacturing facilities, but Blackberry is still putting its name to and having a little design input into some rather splendid smartphones. Now, admittedly, you'll have seen some rather almost identical hardware before because BlackBerry has signed up with Chinese company TCL, picking up a couple of their 2016 reference designs, also used by Alcatel and Vodafone, and I dare say others around the world. But the JBL speakered AMOLED screened form here is top notch, so no one is complaining. BlackBerry's hardware input seems to have been mainly in opting for choosing the colour scheme plus slipping their logo under the rear glass. But there's an OS here that's very close to stock Android, albeit with some BlackBerry first-party software added here and there. Now, you may remember the Alcatel Idol 4 from Phone Show 284 in the summer. I was enormously impressed by this, just a little frustrated by the amount of unremovable bloatware that Alcatel bundled. Now, this new phone, the DTEK60, is based on the Idol 4S reference design, but there are BlackBerry security and productivity additions rather than the revenue generating attempted from Alcatel, thankfully. You still can't remove any of the extras here, but at least they have a first party point and a transparently benign purpose, even if you don't use them all. But let's start with the glorious hardware. I should put the DTEK60 into context by saying that the original Alcatel Idol 4 I reviewed was just over £200 SIM-free here in the UK, while the newer and larger Idol 4S looks to be coming in around the £400 mark when it finally hits in the UK. So quite a jump, double, to get the better chipset, better screen, better battery. And the BlackBerry version here in the DTEK60 is £475 all in, here very kindly loaned by clove.co.uk. It's true that there are extra security smarts here, plus a very real commitment by BlackBerry to stay on top of patches and updates to Android, but it's still quite an overall bump up from that original Alcatel Idol 4 that had me excited back in July. Mind you, we now live in a premium Android world where Google feels it can charge £720 for the smallest capacity Pixel XL and £820 for one that's reasonably spec'd. So £475 here suddenly looks rather cheap by comparison. And the peace of mind that comes with the extra security and update schedule here may well be worth the extra on the purchase price for a phone that will easily last you for a couple of years. The hardware is pretty stunning, it has to be said. You can see why many companies worldwide are choosing to license this particular design and physical device from TCL. The form factor is darn near perfect. I could even get my just about get my thumb and forefinger to touch, and yet with a full 5.5-inch QHD screen squeezed in. There are bezels top and bottom, but at least some of this is to house the excellent stereo JBL branded speakers. Now, at this point, I should offer up a top tip to any DTEK60 owners, either current or potential. Out of the box, these speakers are tinny, quiet and unimpressive. My first thought was, what have BlackBerry done? Surely it's got to be a software issue. And indeed, I then spotted the licensed Waves Max Audio Equalization system baked into the ROM. In addition to fine-tuning the EQ of all audio from the phone, this also adds a significant volume boost, showing that the default state of the audio system is massively within the speaker's design constraints. With this set up properly, the quality and volume was right up with my beloved Marshall London. And that is a compliment. You just have to know which knobs to twiddle in Waves Max Audio. Really nice. Really, really nice. Bit of Joe Bonamassa again. Very nice indeed. On the left is a power button, awkwardly positioned for some obscure reason, while on the right-hand side is what you think is the power button, but turns out to be a convenience key, which you can use to launch specific apps and functions from a determined list. I couldn't find a way to map this to mimic the power button, though, so I opted for LED torch on and off. The 21 megapixel f/2.0 1/2.8 inch optical format camera impressed in good light, producing naturalistic results that weren't over-sharpened Samsung style, though things quickly go to pot when light levels are low, unfortunately. And the strange thing is that the DTEK60's camera shouldn't be this bad in low light. Surely there's a firmware issue here that needs sorting out. Some of my nighttime tests were unusably dark when competing camera phones produced far, far better shots. I realised that camera image quality isn't top of BlackBerry's priority list here and that TCL are the people picking the component, but there's definitely optimization work needed here. There's plenty of battery capacity with 3000 milliamp hours sealed in and backed up by Android 6 with Doze being used as the OS here. I was easily getting a day of life under heavy use with the screen brightness cranked right up, as I usually do with AMOLED screens, so no worries here. Charging is via Quick Charge 3.0 and USB Type-C, so very quick if you use the right charger. Inside, there's a very fast Snapdragon 820 chipset, 4GB of RAM, 32GB of internal storage, plus microSD. So you should be starting to see where at least part of the purchase price comes from. Communications are via all LTE bands, dual band Wi-Fi up to AC and NFC, so again looking at a very full set of high-end specifications. As you'd expect from a late 2016 BlackBerry with an emphasis on security, there's a fingerprint scanner here on the back, a personal and subjective location. I'd much rather have one on the front, but hey, this powers the screen on and authenticates you all in one go, as you'd expect. And backing this up and with all the internals encrypted, as usual, there's a program of regular security updates, including those from Google itself. And if there's one thing I do trust BlackBerry to get right, it's security updates. Plus, things are locked down under the hood. From the reports I've read, this thing can't be easily hacked or rooted. Again, I'm trusting BlackBerry here. This is one secure phone. BlackBerry's own DTEK utility offers a security checkup. Running it never showed anything other than a status of excellent for me, but if something got hacked, then presumably it would leap into action. I did notice that it doesn't cover whether or not you have the installation of apps from unknown sources turned on or not. Surely this is a trivial and critical setting to check, BlackBerry. Also bundled is BBM, of course, obviously, and BlackBerry Device Search, a rather useful utility to search for specific text content within your PIM data. Remember when PDAs used to do this 15 years ago? I do. Great to see it back. Oh, and BlackBerry Password Keeper, a typical secure database, though without an online component, so import and export of records to another device has to be done manually. It does have the interesting feature wherein there's a tie-in to the BlackBerry keyboard on a website where you need to log in. Just tap the Password Keeper icon above the virtual keys, authenticate via the fingerprint sensor, and tap to paste in username and password into the appropriate fields. Nicely done, BlackBerry. This being Android, you can install other keyboards if you like. I missed being able to swipe through words on the BlackBerry one, but it's really up to you. The latter does have the floating auto text suggestions. Some people swear by these, but they rather drove me mad. It was almost always faster to keep typing than to scan the constantly changing suggestions and swipe up from the right one. But this is subjective, I know. You'll have your own favourite way and speed of typing on a phone. Elsewhere, it's basically just stock Google applications with only a few tweaks here and there, for example, to Calendar. Somewhat bizarrely, BlackBerry has tinkered with the Android 6 multitasking carousel, turning it into a confusing tile-like mess. Whoever thought this was a good idea should be shot. Full marks for experimentation and 0 marks for testing this on real-world users. Also rather bizarre that you don't have to use it is a slide-up system from the home screen shortcuts. You see a ... legend and you can slide up to pop up the application's registered widgets. Tap again to see their content, and that's it. You can't then pin this to a blank home screen space. It's just there and slower than accessing the information in the app directly. It's just another UI idea that I bet had no real world testing. And it's also a complete mess. Happily, you can turn the ... slider pop-up widget idea off in each case. Finally, there's BlackBerry Hub, most easily accessed via a slide-out summary pane from the right-hand edge of the home screens. This integrates an email client, SMS, calendar and to-do tasks, and will suit those with multiple email and corporate accounts. Google and Android diehards like me will probably prefer to keep on with Gmail and other standalone applications. But hey, you buy a BlackBerry and you get the Hub as an option. And why not? The tempting thing about the BlackBerry DTEK60 is that it's effectively stock Android plus a few mostly pretty useful bells and whistles, kept bang up to date in terms of security, yet with premium build and glorious stereo speakers. Wow. For anyone bemoaning the price or single speaker of the Google Pixel range, this comes in as a very attractive alternative. And for BlackBerry's target market of legacy customers, they get to introduce them to something truly modern and competitive in many ways with the best of Android. It's always a sign that a phone is impressing me when I think about reaching for a buy button myself, and the DTEK60 had me thinking seriously. Ultimately, I think I'd personally get frustrated by the so-so camera. But if that doesn't bother you and you want a premium glass and metal experience, fully secure and without tons of manufacturer bloatware, with very decent stereo speakers top and bottom for media consumption, then the Blackberry DTEK60 is eminently worthy of consideration.